you by Newsworks in cooperation with Eau Claire County.
Supervisor, it is now 7 o'clock. I call to order its regular meeting of the Eau Claire County Board of Supervisors on this Tuesday, September the 21st at 7 p.m. Next in order is our honoring of the flag, followed by a moment of reflection by Supervisor Sandra McKinney. Supervisors, together. I pledge
allegiance to the flag
of the
of the
United
United States of
America,
and to the republic
Republic
which
which
stands,
stands,
nation,
nation
under God,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Supervisor McKinney.
Thank you, Chair Schmeier. Tomorrow, September 22nd at 2 p.m. is fall equinox, the change of a season. You know, many cultures create rituals that recognize the change in seasons. And our ancestors knew it was a time to give thanks and to express gratitude. It's also a time to bring balance and harmony into our lives. Autumn is a time to honor and celebrate the harvest. This time of year also comes with an energy of letting go, using this time for releasing anything in our lives that may no longer be working for us, a job, a relationship, a habit, even a belief. Do we hold beliefs that no longer apply? Have we outgrown internal stories or memories? Are there any thoughts or habits holding us back? We might even write those down on a piece of paper and release them to a fire in a simple releasing ceremony. And remember, in Wisconsin, we celebrate the season changes like this. Winter is at 7 a.m. Spring starts about 10 a.m. Summer is at 2, and fall starts around 5-ish. Happy equinox. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor McKinney. Next in our agenda is the call of the roll. Clerk McDonald.
Supervisor Gibson,
Present.
McKinney,
Present.
Knight,
Here.
Pagonis,
Here.
Anton,
Here.
Zook,
Here.
Filson,
Here.
Delgis,
Here.
Mowry, Coffee,
Here.
Henning, Bates,
Here.
Russell,
Here.
Gatlin,
Present.
Meyer,
Here.
Hambuck Boyle,
Here.
Neiman, Dunning,
Present.
Wilkie,
Here.
Anderson,
Present.
Beckfield, Schneider,
Here.
Leary,
I'm here.
DeLuca,
Here.
Jansen,
Here.
Rothnagel,
Here.
Roberts,
I'm here.
Kronk,
Here.
and Christofferson.
Here.
We have 26 present, 3 absent.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is the Journal of Proceedings from August the 17th. The chair looks for a motion.
Gatlin so moved to approve as presented.
Thank you. We have a motion. I think
by Bates.
Bates is seconding. Thank you very much. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to the Journal of Proceedings? I hear none. We will do this by a voice vote. Please unmute. All those in favor of approval of the Journal of Proceedings of August the 17th, please indicate by saying aye.
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 All those opposed by nay. It is unanimous. Thank you. Next on our agenda is public hearing on redistricting pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 59.10 sub 3 sub B A public hearing is conducted now by the Eau Claire County Board of Supervisors to provide comment on the Board of Supervisors tentative plan for county and municipal redistricting. I'm going to open the meeting with a brief redistricting update from our county administrator, and then we will proceed to hearing from the public. Administrator Schauf. Are you there?
Yes, thank you. I
Oh.
needed to unmute.
Sorry.
The redistricting process, of course, has begun. At the last meeting of the Committee on Administration, the committee heard the tentative redistricting plan and brought that forward to you as a board to consider tonight for potential approval. Since that time, Peter Strand, our GIS administrator, has been preparing individual maps with far more detail for board members to review and consider. And so tonight, the board will approve the tentative redistricting plan, which then goes to our municipal partners, who will then create wards, send that back to the County Board of Supervisors for final approval in November. And so we're about midway through the process. And Peter and Sue McDonald, our county clerk, have been in contact with our local governments throughout this process. Because of the compressed timeline, they have taken extra steps to involve municipal partners throughout the process. Peter is with us this evening and will go over in more detail with the board some of the considerations into his thoughts as he was preparing those maps. And so I will now turn over this presentation to Peter Strand. Thank you.
Peter?
Hi there. So, did it share my screen?
Not yet.
There we go.
There it is.
Now there.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. As indicated, I'm working on the redistricting, the tentative redistricting plan, and I'll give you an update on that. So, in the 2020 census, Eau Claire County has been counted a population of 105,710, what they call total persons. That's up from 98,736. Therefore, you do the math, divide that number, our total pop, by 29 for the number of districts. We're going to have an optimal or ideal population for each county board supervisor district of 3,645 people. And that number is really important because the main principle on why we do redistricting nationwide is the principle of one person, one vote. And that comes to us from the Equal Protection Clause under the Constitution. So it's our goal, or my goal, to create districts of substantially equal population. And the plan presented to you has done that. Each district has no greater deviation from that optimal population of more than 4%. And the plan total combined deviation is 7.68%. Anything less than 10% for county plan is considered very good. So we meet that primary principle of redistricting. There's a whole bunch of other factors that we've taken into consideration in congruity, or a series of things in continuous connection, is a principle of redistricting. So all of the census blocks in a district should be contiguous with the rest of the blocks. And we do this with two minor exceptions. Where we have city islands, what was formerly the Little Red School and the landfill, those are within those are in districts that they would be adjacent to if they were adjacent. And that is acceptable. That is the correct way to do it. So we have contiguous. We have compactness is a principle of redistricting. Districts should be compact. Overall, our districts are fairly compact, especially in the urban area where blocks are small and easy to combine or easy to map around. Sometimes though, we have some areas where compactness was more challenging to achieve. And that's because another tenet of redistricting is the preservation of political boundaries. And it is that counties, municipalities, and wards will remain intact whenever possible. Plans should split municipalities and counties into the fewest number of possible pieces. That being, supervisory districts are comprised of whole wards. So we can't split a ward. So when a supervisory district crosses a ward boundary, that municipality will need to split that ward into 2 wards. And wards within the towns in Eau Claire County have a minimum population of 300 total persons. Wards within the city of Eau Claire have a minimum population of 800 total people. Therefore, we do get some, I believe the term I heard today was wonky, mess it up, wonkiness. There's some unique boundaries, and it's just going to take a second and flip over to a different GIS map and show you kind of why that is. So this is the boundary of the city of Eau Claire and the town of Seymour. And you can see from its unique geography that this is when we're trying to maintain political boundaries and redistricting, we're dealing with a challenging puzzle piece here. I can show you that this is the annexations over the last, I want to say 8-10 years that have created this unique boundary. It's a little more evident if I show you, these are the parcels that are within the town of Seymour. And then these are the parcels within the city of Eau Claire. So the city of Eau Claire has annexed into what was traditional or what was before the town and created this unique geography. So in order to maintain political boundaries and not create wards with less than 300 people, sometimes we do suffer with compactness. It's a balancing act of scales of whether compactness or political boundaries or wards win out. In that, we also don't consider communities of interest, where if there was a special community that of like people with common economic, ethnic, cultural, or other concerns, we try to keep those together. One of those in Eau Claire County is actually we consider the current district as a community of interest. So we wanted to keep the bulk of the citizens that were in 15 or in a supervisory district in that district. We weren't able, we're not able to do that everywhere. Every district changed, but we really wanted to remain the heart of the district, the most people in their current numbered district. That was kind of the challenges and what we've presented. One other general trend to note for Eau Claire County, and this is not unique to us, if I zoom all the way out, our rural districts had increased in size in order to capture the number of people, whereas our urban areas kind of became more compact. So out in the rural areas, all of what I would consider primarily rural districts increased in size in order to capture that optimal population. And with that, I'll open up for any questions anybody has.
Well, at this point, Peter, we're in public hearing. So the next thing would be to ask if there are any members of the public who wish to present comment, whether that's question or discussion. So I guess it would be Samantha. Do we have anyone who
Excuse me, Chair Snyder, there were no public comments submitted ahead of the meeting.
Okay. Is there anyone online who wishes to present comment or question? Is there anyone online who wishes to present comment or question?
At this
Okay,
point, you're not including us, right?
that's correct. We have our chance later, Supervisor Snyder, when the resolution comes up. And we'll have Peter back again for that. Is there anyone online who wishes to present comment? I have called for it 3 times. I hear no responses. I will consider the public hearing to be at an end. We next move to our regular public comment. Is there anyone online? I'm sorry, is there anyone who wishes to present a general public comment? Samantha, do we have anyone who registered for public comment?
We do not have anyone.
Okay. I will ask again, is there anyone online who wishes to present public comment? Anyone online who wishes to present public comment? Okay, we will move on from public comment to the 6th item in our agenda, and that's reports to the county board under 2.04.320 under oral reports from the Regional Planning Commission and Regional Business Fund, an update by Lynn Nelson, Executive Director, Tobi LeMahieu, Fund Manager. Lynn, are you online?
I am.
Okay, and I believe that you have a PowerPoint?
We do have a PowerPoint, and Tobi is going to share her screen. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for allowing us to participate in your meeting tonight. My name is Lynn Nelson. I'm the Executive Director of the West Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission, and I'm here with Tobi LeMahieu. Tobi is the fund manager with our organization, and her work focuses on the business assistance portion of our work. And we would like to take just a few moments of your time to provide a brief update on the work of the Regional Planning Commission and the Regional Business Fund. I feel like it's important that we do that annually. The county is a member of our organization, and you pay a financial fee to be a member. And so I want to make sure that you're aware of the work that we're doing and what you're getting for that money. And also as a reminder, to keep us in mind as you're looking at needs and issues that the county has over the next year or any of the units of government in the county. And keep in mind that we want to work with you on those types of issues and remind you of our services. So I'll also note that we do have a full packet of information in your electronic meeting materials, inclusive of annual reports that have contact information for both Tobi and I. So if following the meeting you should have any questions or want to talk about projects, please feel free to reach out to us. So just some real quick background on the Regional Planning Commission as a refresher. We are a planning and technical assistance entity that was established under state statute in 1971. We are one of 9 regional planning commissions in the state, represented by number 9 on the map, the area in tan. We cover 7 counties, inclusive of Eau Claire County in West Central Wisconsin. We are governed by a 21-member commission or board that is made up of 21 members, 3 appointments made by each of the 7 counties within the region. Here's a listing of those people, and you'll probably recognize some of those names. A couple of them are with us tonight, so thank you to them for the guidance that they've been providing to our organization. We are staffed by a group of 14 people. As the needs in the region have grown, so too has our staff. So our staff is a little larger than it's been in the past. And that's a good thing for Eau Claire County and the rest of the counties in the region, because it just allows us to bring more resources and more expertise to the table as we're helping to address the needs in the region. The goal of our organization is to assist units of government in planning for the physical, social, and economic development needs of the region. And we do that by providing services within 4 broad categories, including economic development, transportation, community development, and then conservation and mapping. The slide shows some of the types of projects that we've been working on over the last year. This is just a sample of some of the things we've been doing. There's more detailed lists in our annual reports, but these really are samples of how we work with units of government, whether that be counties, cities, villages, towns, or nonprofits, in helping to address needs. Everything from providing staffing to the Chippewa Eau Claire Metropolitan Planning Organization and Rain to Rivers, to working on economic development grant applications for infrastructure, helping with project administration, preparing a Chippewa Valley bike map, all of those types of things. Beyond these individual projects, something that's a little more difficult to quantify is the technical assistance and advice that we're available to provide to units of government as well. And that's an important activity, and it's been even more important with COVID. We've spent a great deal of time over the past year in putting together resource guides and doing webinars and reaching out and making sure that units of government are aware of resources that are out there to help in the recovery after the pandemic. One other area that Tobi's going to talk about that we work on is really assistance to businesses throughout the region. So I'll let her take over now. Are you there, Tobi? We lose Tobi. Huh. Okay, and I cannot.
I can see her. Is she muted by chance? I can hear her voice, but I can't hear her.
She's muted.
Can you unmute, Tobi? Well,
Sorry about that.
there you go.
There she goes.
With my share screen, I wasn't finding the mute button. Sorry. Okay, so now I'm here. Thank you for your patience. Okay, so I'm here to talk about the grant programs and business programs that we've been assisting businesses with in the same 7-county region. So one grant program that we assisted with this in response to COVID-19 pandemic was called the West Central Wisconsin Micro Enterprise Grant Program. We were the regional administrator of that program. The program provided up to $5,000 grants to those businesses that were impacted by COVID-19. To qualify for those grants, the business had to have been small, 5 or fewer employees, located in our same region except for the city of Eau Claire, established prior to February 5th as the start of COVID-19, and owned by a person or business owners with income qualifications. The grant funds were used to assist those businesses with those working capital needs related directly to COVID, like I mentioned. And in total, we helped 180 businesses, and this is the breakdown of the grants in our 7-county region. And with the dollar amount almost getting to $900,000 again in grant funding to those businesses that were most needy. This is just the same numbers, just broken down in a different way. Another program that we are assisting the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation with in our region is called the Main Street Bounce Back Grant Program. The state is working with regional administrators throughout the whole state of Wisconsin, and we were selected to assist with our 7-county region. This does include the city of Eau Claire and all of the other areas in our region. This provides $10,000 grants to businesses that are moving into previously vacant commercial spaces. The name is a little misleading in that it says Main Street Bounce Back Grant Program, but it can be any vacant commercial space a business would be eligible for. For this program, we've gotten about 155 applications to date, and the program was announced in early August. So funds are going fairly quickly in our region and also in the state of Wisconsin. If you know of any business that might meet those qualifications, or if you just want to share the information, I'd be happy to send information directly to you. I think you also received a one-pager on that program in your packet. Also, the information's on our website too, including that application. One of the things with the Main Street Bounce Back program is the timing matters. So those businesses have to move into that previously vacant commercial space sometime between January 1st of this year through June 30th of next year, or until funds run out. And the business cannot qualify if they're simply renewing an existing lease or vacating one space to take advantage of the program and occupying another one. The last thing I want to talk about is something else that the Regional Planning Commission staffs. It's another nonprofit that was actually created by the Regional Planning Commission in 1995 to administer one federal revolving loan fund program at that time. Now at this time, we have 7 loan programs that are made available to businesses that are really not able to get all of their financing from a traditional bank or credit union, or any of their financing from a traditional bank or credit union. So we just offer a supplementary public source of financing to those businesses in the same 7-county region as the Regional Planning Commission. We have a separate board of directors made up of representatives of the 7 counties. And again, staffing is provided by the Regional Planning Commission. In total, we have about $16 million in assets that, again, is lent out to businesses to assist them with their projects to help them grow and expand. I'm not going to get into the details of those programs, but here is just a snapshot of some businesses we assisted in 2020. You can see some small manufacturers and some restaurants in Eau Claire County. Also in 2021, kind of the same, we helped a golf course, a small manufacturer, and a restaurant also. So with that, I think we, either Lynn or I, are able to take questions about any of the things we talked about, or anything else you want to chat about with us. I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Questions, supervisors? Comments?
Supervisor Wilkie.
Supervisor Wilkie.
This probably isn't in your realm, and you can tell me. So do you do anything in the area of lake rehab, helping? We've got a valuable resource out at Lake Altoona that half the time is closed because of algae, or is that not in your realm?
Water quality is really an area that we've been working in, and we've gotten more and more into. And I know that some of our staff have been talking to the Lake District about water quality and funding sources. I don't know if it's specifically relating to what you're talking about, but we can provide some guidance in that area. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions or comments? Supervisor Bates.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And one thing I'm wondering about is, as we look at, in our region in particular, the development of train travel and looking to bring people together to support it, do you have a role in that particular area?
We have been working with the Rail Coalition and providing staff and technical assistance to that group. So that is how we have been involved. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Other question or comment?
This is Judy Gatlin. I'm curious, the first smaller loan program that you spoke of with the small businesses with 5 employees or less, were you able to disperse all the money? Do they have to pay it back? And how do they be accountable? Specifically, the small businesses.
So the first program was that micro enterprise grant program. Yep, all of the funds have been exhausted within that program. So we were able to advertise for a 2-week period in early June, from June 1st to June 15th. So we took applications kind of in one batch, and we tried to get the marketing out as fast as possible. So yes, all those funds have kind of been allocated to those businesses. And then in terms of after the awards are made to those businesses, there is no future reporting required of those businesses, and there's no requirement for payback. It is a grant, so there's no requirement for payback from those businesses.
Very good. And you do a great job advertising your programs.
Oh, thank you.
Supervisor DeLuca, followed by Supervisor Jansen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have two questions about your RBF section. Can you apply for more than one grant at a time? And do you have to pay off a grant before you can go to another grant?
So the grant programs, like I talked about, for the one was the microenterprise grant program. That one was made to assist those that were impacted by COVID, and there was also the requirement that they verified to us or certified to us that they did not use those funds to assist with other sorts of costs that they also got grant dollars for. So they did have to show us that they were using the funds for something related to COVID where they didn't get any other funds, PPP loans or anything else, loan forgiveness programs. So there was some documentation associated with that. And if somebody was eligible for both of those grant programs I talked about with the microenterprise grant program and the bounce back grant program, they very well could have applied for both grant programs. That would have been eligible or is eligible. And again, we're still taking applications for the bounce back grant program, but not the microenterprise grant program.
Thank you.
Supervisor Jansen, Supervisor Wilkie, your hand is up. Are we coming back to you or did you forget to lower your hand? Thank you.
Forgot.
All right. Supervisor Jansen.
Thank you. And first, I'd just like to say, Lynn and Tobi, it's great to see you, and I'm glad that you are here presenting to us. I know that's something we worked on when I previously was on the committee, and so it's great to see you and sharing all of the great work here with everybody on the full board. So thank you for that. My question is related to that Main Street Bounce Back program. So you said you had about 150 applications in, and is that just kind of a first come, first serve until the funds are exhausted, and kind of what's the time frame that people usually hear back, and how many funds are left on the table right now?
Great questions. I'm going to see if I can get them all. Let me know if I don't reach all of them. So we think our allocation is going to be about a total of $3 million for our 7-county region. We're still kind of in those conversations with the state of Wisconsin. We did get about $1.5 million up front. We're thinking that's going to double here. We're reviewing those at the Regional Planning Commission's Executive Committee on a monthly basis. So we've got folks taking those on a first come, first serve basis. So they're getting numbered as they come in, and we're putting them in a spreadsheet and doing lots of other due diligence behind the scenes. And like I said, we're just going to be taking those first come, first serve until the funds are exhausted. And like I said, about $3 million is what we're anticipating getting in total. Did I get all the questions?
You nailed it. You got
all right.
them all. Thank
you.
Supervisor Anton.
He's muted.
You're muted, Carl.
Okay. Does this program become involved with Economic Development Corporation?
The Regional Business Fund as a nonprofit, the loan programs that we have, that one? Or any of them?
Any of them.
Any of them. Yep. So I think with most of our programs, we do partner with the Economic Development Corporation, really for those EDCs to be our boots on the ground and help to market our programs, both with the grant programs and our loan programs. And we do have a partnership with the Eau Claire area EDC to help provide a loan committee members that we also have, that I take all of my requests to when they do come into Eau Claire County. Kathryn sits on that committee. So hi, Kathryn, thanks for sitting on that committee. And there's 6 others that also sit on that committee. And that committee is a tie that we have with the Eau Claire County EDC. And again, the other reason would be the marketing.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Please lower your hand, Supervisor Anton. Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to present, to comment, or ask a question? I see no others. Thank you, Lynn and Tobi, for your report.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda is an EDI update from Dr. Jeneise Briggs. She's informed me that it's really JEDI, J standing for justice. Is that correct? Dr. Briggs, where are you?
Yes,
There
I'm here. Hopefully you can see me and hear me.
We can, yes. Thank you.
Okay, I'll start to share my screen. Yes, good evening, County Board of Supervisors, my fellow coworkers who are online, and any members of the public who are here. Thank you for affording me this opportunity to give you a brief update on the work of the county in terms of progress towards JEDI, Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. I know my title is Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion, but I had to add the J to it. So the next slide, for those who are on the phone or who are not able to see my slide, there are 3 different graphics. One has update, one has framework, and then a road to show the roadmap. So in your packet, you would have seen a 3-month update from my office on the work that myself and my coworkers have been doing, and members of the community over the past, well, between June to August. And then I'll talk a little bit about the frameworks that will be guiding the office of the JEDI, Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. I'll explain what those means, what the acronym means in a few slides down, and then give you a roadmap of where this work is going. So I won't go in detail because the information is there in your packet, but being a new member of the Eau Claire community, moved here in June, I wanted to get to meet my coworkers and members of the public, either individually or as a group, to learn from either their lived or professional expertise about this work and how they see this role, and how they envision Eau Claire from an inclusive lens. So I have met with all department heads, and I've met with a sample size of my coworkers to glean from their perspective, how can we create this work together. And in the update, you'll see themes that emerged out of our conversation. Because our discussions were confidential and authentic, I looked for any emerging themes that was woven in my conversations with my coworkers. So for example, creation of an organizational culture that embrace differences and create a positive environment for all. Another example, increased representation in the workforce that reflects the diversity in the Eau Claire community. And this is not an exhaustive list. I just wanted to put some of the things that came out of our conversation there. And then I created a JEDI team, one for the city, one for the county, and members of the Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion team went back in their departments, because they're almost like ambassadors for their departments, to find out from my coworkers, what are some of the areas you'd want to broaden your knowledge and learning. And so there are some things that came out, for example, de-escalation of situations across racial lines. The hiring process, harassment and discrimination, implicit bias, HR refresher, people experiencing homelessness, how can they either get involved through volunteering or have members of our community to come and talk to our groups about that. What does that mean for Eau Claire? And then community engagement and outreach is being intentional about those. The JEDI team and myself will put together all of this in a training module framework, because we have to see, the needs assessment we've done. How are we going to deliver these messages? What's the budget? How are we going to, etc. So that's more into the weeds. There are information on how we'd like to have a landing page for JEDI on our external website, and some information that would be there for the public, for them to be aware of this work and the ongoing, because this is going to be ongoing. It's not a sprint, it's more of a marathon, right? And then I included some of the community engagement efforts that I've been involved with over those 3 months as well. And also my external meetings with community groups and organizations, a little bit about their organization, and then collaborative work opportunity. So that's that condensed version of the update. And I'll be happy to take questions later. But I want to talk a little bit about the frameworks that will guide this office. But before, I wanted to talk a little bit about some of those foundational terminologies, what I mean by justice, dismantling barriers and to resources and opportunities in our city, in our county, so that members of our community can live a full and dignified life. And then when it comes on to equity, we're talking about the fair treatment, right? The access, the opportunity, and advancement for all people, while at the same time we're striving to identify and eliminate barriers that have prevented the full participation of some groups in our community. And I need to go to the next slide. Diversity, right? All the ways in which people differ. Those protected classes, race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, age, religious belief, etc. Understanding that all of us are unique, and we bring that uniqueness either to the team, to the industry, to the workforce. How can we leverage the unique intersectionalities of each member of our workforce and our community? And then inclusion is about folks with different identities feeling and being valued, leveraged, and welcome within a given setting, as I said, the workplace or the team, the industry. Authentically bringing traditionally excluded individuals and or groups into processes, decision-making, in a way that shares power. And as is evident with the previous listening session that we had at the Pablo Center, hearing from members of our community and weighing in on the ARPA funds. And then, why is this work necessary? Of course, you hired me for this work, so leadership commitment is there. And Eau Claire, we want to stay on that forefront of being a welcoming and inclusive city. And there's, we want to keep, there's a change in demographics, so workforce development is changing, cultural conflict. We want to be a strong community. We want to be that model city. And so that the moral and social justice aspect of this work, right? Asserting that each person has value to contribute in any different capacities, and also addressing those barriers and historical factors that have led to unfair conditions for marginalized populations. Then there's the economic case, just that, diverse talent pools are stronger, they're more efficient. And then the market case, states that organizations will better serve their customers if they reflect the diversity. So reflect the diversity within our community. And of course, the results case. Scott Page, who is the author of how the power of diversity creates better groups. In his research, he found that diverse groups of problem solvers outperform the groups of best individuals of solving problems. So diverse nonprofit organizations and the diversity of perspectives within them will lead to better solutions to social problems. And the next slide describes the framework that will guide this work. There is a picture with a lot of people on it, and that's the Government Alliance on Race Equity. And as public servants, we have that unique responsibility for all of our residents. So really addressing racial inequities and examine the systems in which we all live here in Eau Claire and the surrounding communities to achieve a collective vision of racial equity. And then the next framework shows a triangle. I had the approval from the authors for the Center for Global Diversity and Equity to use their framework, which really looks at what's going to drive this strategy. We need the vision, we need the leadership, we need the structure in place, right? We need that foundational piece. And then looking at the internal structure, how do we attract and retain people? And then the external piece to that is listen to and serve society, or marketing our community or services or products, our members of our rural community accessing or products or services, or are they not? Are they having barriers, and how can we help to overcome those together? And then in the middle, there's a circle that really, how do we bridge, align, and connect all three of them? And the next graphic talks about people, place, process, power, and the middle, the decision or the issue. That framework is the equity and empowerment lens logic. And this really focuses on the greater individual and the community empowerment. Like, how can we as an individual and as a community eliminate some of the root causes of suffering and inequities that has happened in various parts of our community, communities of color, communities traditionally more marginalized or underserved. And then due to time, it's where should the organization be in the future, and how should the organization get there? So this is a work in progress. So some of these goals came out of that initial data collection, so to speak, because the county had we have EDI data that was collected prior to me starting here. So there are 4 goals. We want to look at our organizational culture, or vision, or leadership, the business impact, the workforce development, attracting and retaining talent, and the community engagement piece. How are we listening and serving society? And then education, training, and awareness. So this is the next slide, describes kind of a sample of the JEDI, Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion strategic plan that's currently being worked on. I will be having members of the JEDI, which members of our JEDI team at the county, there's a representative from all departments. So we'll have them weigh in on this. Then I'll have all department heads weigh in on this as well. We'll have the leadership, County Administrator Schauf, weigh in on it. And I'd love to have some feedback from you, County Board of Supervisors, so that we have an inclusive document with getting the different lens and perspective from all stakeholders. So for example, goal number 1, organizational culture, what is the action that we want to take? What is the output? What are the steps that we're going to take to get there? It's not a landing point, it's just the steps that we'll take to get there. What is the outcome that we hope to achieve? Who's going to be accountable for it, right? And what are the benchmarks? So we're keeping ourselves accountable, and also having some KPIs, key performance metrics there as well. So for example, action, develop a strong rationale for EDI vision, equity, diversity, and inclusion, the mission, the strategy, and make sure that we're aligning all of this with the organizational goals in creating and maintaining an inclusive workplace. An output could be, we're really looking intentionally at our processes, our policies, our procedural pathways, our budget, or strategic plans. We're centering that on racial equity. And that, statements from leadership exist in prominent venues. One of the things that the JEDI team and we're going to be working on is an organizational video that captures what does JEDI really means for as an individual, as a leader, and also from the lens of the community. Again, justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. And then what does a benchmark of excellence look like? So for example, equity, diversity, and inclusion is embedded in the organizational culture as a core value, a source of innovation, and a means of sustainability and of success, etc. And then I think Samantha had gotten you this PowerPoint. Then we also have a sample of what the goal of development, workforce development looks like, how we're going to attract and retain or staff. I have information there. And then the next slide, goal 3, what does community engagement looks like when listening to and serve society? I'll just go over this one briefly. An action could be, we're being proactive in working with community, public and private partnerships, government and society as a large. And then an output could be what the number of collaborative partnerships with communities of color. And one of the outcomes we'd want to see is decreased silos across sectors as we start to leverage our resources and growing Eau Claire through that lens of inclusivity. And then a benchmark for success or excellence would be that the organization successfully leverages diverse teams, including diversity networks, customers, partners in the community, and other stakeholders to improve our products and our services. And then the last slide, due to time, I'll because I have 1 minute, I'm timing myself, would be a call to action. Again, would love for you, County Board of Supervisors as leadership to really weigh in on the strategic plan once it goes through all those different phases, right? Would love for us to come back to listen, share, learn what your vision of inclusion looks like for the county, look like for our community, and what does an organizational culture that is built on inclusivity contains from your lens, and what are some of the outcomes that you'd like to see. So that is what I have for you, and I'm open to any questions, comments, or concerns. Thank you.
Supervisor Dunning.
Yes, Dr. Briggs, are you working at all with the Native American folks that are living in the county?
Could you repeat your question? I couldn't hear you.
Oh, are you working with the Native American population that's in Eau Claire County?
I have not yet. I recently had a meeting with a coworker, Director Emmanuel, who's with the UW Extension, who's going to be connecting me with, oops, sorry, that's my timer, who's going to be connecting me with a lot of individuals and resources that she has. And I have some meetings that will be coming up, such as the end of this month. I'm going to be at the town of Washington, so getting into the rural communities. I just have not gotten to all pockets of our community as yet, but I hope to.
Okay, thank you.
And if you have any names that you want to send my way, please do.
I will do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments?
Schneider with a question.
Supervisor Schneider.
You mentioned a couple times racial equity. Is that just an example, or is that the main kind of equity that you're concerned with?
Thank you, Supervisor Schneider. No, I mentioned, so the Government Alliance on Race and Equities is one of the frameworks that I'll be doing, but understanding that there's a broad spectrum of diversity, so it would be a disservice if I only focused on race and forgetting people with disability, forgetting age, forgetting communication style, forgetting geographic location, you name it. So it will not be excluded to race.
Do you have contacts yet with the deaf community?
No, I don't, but I'd be happy to take the name or contacts that you have.
I'll be in touch.
Thank you so much.
Any other comment or question?
Buck Boyle.
Supervisor Humbuck Boyle.
Dr. Briggs, have you had been given the copy of the Eau Claire School District's equity statement?
Thank you, Supervisor Boyle. I am a member of the Equity Steering Committee. We just had a first meeting yesterday. So yes, I have seen it.
Good. Good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And so I'll be working with the school district as well.
Good. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
Any other question or comment? I see none. Thank you, Dr. Briggs.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Next on our agenda is an American Rescue Plan update by the County Administrator. Administrator Schauf.
Thank you. I will be very brief. This evening, the County Board will consider a resolution that's being put forward by the Committee on Administration that will begin partial allocation of some of the funds from the American Rescue Plan. Along with that, the task force began its work and has met and has identified 3 pathways that they are going to begin building and working. One is in the area of developing communication and feedback loops, that is for the sharing, the opportunity to apply for funds to various communities of interest. They will develop a marketing plan to ensure that individuals are able to understand opportunity and then apply. And then they're also looking to identify resources needed by applicants so that we can assist those who are looking for those funds. They are working toward the hiring of the third-party administrator with purchasing. And the next meeting will be one where they will have a planning meeting with the third-party administrator so they can begin developing the materials and the processes for applying for funds. And that will include identifying target audiences, process flow, and how they want to move forward. We heard a lot at the shared meeting with the city of Eau Claire on use of ARPA funds recently, and so that will help inform some of the work as well. Along with that, the final area is looking at potential shared projects of regional impact. And there are a number of areas where this committee is beginning to work and have dialogue with other local governments, affordable housing, regional housing study. The Chippewa Valley Transformation Project is a potential area where we may want to work collaboratively, as well as lake management, the study infrastructure investment that is pertinent and relevant to our community partners. That is the end of my update for this evening.
Questions or comments? Questions or comments? I'm sorry, is someone asking to speak? Supervisor Bates, is that you?
I think really I think it's a very, very quick off the ground start. Sounds like everyone is anxious to work together to really make this work for us.
Thank you. Any other questions or comment? Thank you, Administrator Schauf. Next, we move on to written reports, which you have in your packet. Reports from the Finance Department. First, the 2021 Contingency Fund, and second, the August 2021 payments over $10,000. Are there any questions or comments regarding the written reports? Any questions or comments?
Could you have the Finance Department talk about the towns and the money that went out to the towns and just help me understand that better and to the school districts?
You want an explanation of those payments?
Yes, please.
Do we have, is Director Kirk online? I don't think he is.
Yes,
Oh,
he
yes.
is.
Director Kirk?
I am, but unfortunately, I don't have that material right in front of me. So I will have to get back to you on that.
Did you want to know about the specific payments, or did you want to understand what those payments are?
Just to understand what the payments are is perfect, right? What's the purpose, and is this an annual payment? How I was just Augusta School District of Altoona, Fall Creek, and then the towns have.
Chair Smyer, this is Supervisor Pagonis. I could help somewhat.
Please go ahead, Supervisor Pagonis.
Thank you. The county collects property taxes for all these different taxing entities, and this is their payments. So that's what you're seeing.
Thank you, Supervisor Pagonis. Supervisor Coffey, is that sufficient?
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other question or comment on the written reports? Very well. We move on next to the presentation of petitions, claims, and communications. We have 5 rezoning requests. First, a rezoning request from owners and applicants Brian and Allison Spindler for the town of Lincoln, which will go forward to our next meeting. Rezoning request from owners and applicants Jody and Denny Backstrom, or Josh and Denny Backstrom for the town of Union. That will go to our next meeting. Rezoning request from owner and applicant Mark Briggs for the town of Union, which will go to our next meeting. Rezoning request from owner John Kelly and applicant Real Land Survey Jeremy Schauf for the town of Washington, which will go to our next meeting. And finally, rezoning request from owner and applicant Deborah Bowie for the town of Washington, which will go on to our next meeting. Next on our agenda is reports of standing committees, commissions, and boards under 2.04.160 and second reading of ordinances. First is file number from the Committee on Human Resources and the Airport Commission, file number 50.
A resolution authorizing to abolish one part-time 0.5 FTE maintenance technician and to create one full-time 1.0 FTE maintenance technician.
Motion?
Gatlin motion.
Moved by Supervisor Gatlin, second.
Dunning,
Second by Supervisor Cronk. Explanation, I'm not sure who'll do this explanation. Supervisor.
This is
Stelzer?
Judy Gatlin. I can do this
Please,
by
Supervisor Gatlin.
sharing the HR committee. I can't provide much more than what's in the fact sheet. It's very, very complete, and it's a very the same story that we're hearing over and over as time evolves and as we pivot and adjust, especially in the airport that has so many regulations from counties and specifically the federal government. So we're abolishing a half-time maintenance position, a maintenance tech position that at the time 10 years ago fit in with what we needed, and we are creating a one full-time maintenance tech position at the same step, same wage. It's impossible to recruit for part-time positions at such a low wage. So the airport is understaffed like every other program, and I hope you would support this. Pretty easy.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there any other background information to be offered?
Stelz's here, if I
Yes,
may.
Supervisor Stelz's, thank you.
Just one other add is that this has no impact on levy because the airport is covered with their own operational funds there. So
Apologies to you, Supervisor Stelz's. I should have called on you first.
no, I think Supervisor Gatlin did a great
wonderful job. Yes. Okay. Any questions or discussion? I hear none. I see no hands raised. Supervisors, we will do our vote by voice. Please unmute. All those in favor of file 50, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed by nay. The motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Next, from the Committee on Administration, file number 45.
A resolution approving a tentative supervisory district plan and directing the Department of Planning and Development to forward the tentative plan to each municipal governing body.
Motion?
Bates.
Supervisor Bates moves. Second.
Supervisor Welke.
I'm sorry, Supervisor Wilkie. I heard some voice before yours. Who was it?
Supervisor Dunning.
Supervisor Dunning seconds. Thank you. Explanation. I'm going to ask Administrator Schauf to provide an explanation backed up by Supervisor Bates.
Thank you.
Administrator Schauf.
Yes, thank you. So the resolution that you see before you this evening was constructed by the Committee on Administration to identify bucketed areas of known need at this time so that we in the county can begin to address the needs of our community in a meaningful way.
Administrator Schauf, excuse me.
I'm sorry.
We're talking about the district plan.
I'm sorry, Chair Smyer.
That's okay.
I'm on the wrong resolution.
I noticed that. Could you switch gears there, please?
Yes, I will. Thank you.
Thanks.
The redistricting plan then is the same actually that you heard as part of the presentation earlier this evening by Peter Strand. And the tentative district plan will be sent to our municipal partners, after which they will return that plan to the county when wards are created for final adoption by the Board of Supervisors. It will be vetted through the Committee on Administration before it comes back to the county board.
Thank you. Supervisor Bates, any addition?
I have nothing further to add except that it was passed unanimously by administration. It has no fiscal impact. And basically, some of the questions as to whether or not any supervisors currently serving would be impacted by this were answered, and it appears they will not be. So I think with the support of the committee, I urge your support.
Thank you. Questions or comments?
Schneider with a general question.
Supervisor Schneider, followed by Supervisor Gatlin.
General question. There's lawsuits, I guess, at the state level about redistricting. Does that have anything to do with this, or could it affect this?
Administrator Schauf?
I don't believe that at this point, those lawsuits would affect the work that we are doing here at the local level. The local redistricting process is unique to the local districts, and so it will not have an effect.
Corp Counsel, do you have any input here?
I would agree with the statement made by Administrator Schauf.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Schneider, is that response for you?
Yep.
Okay, Supervisor Gatlin, I believe you were next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just curious, how many municipal partners do we have?
Minister Schauf?
I mean, not how many people, but groups.
Yeah.
And is that the city of Eau Claire included in that?
Yes.
How many? I'm sorry.
13.
Okay, thank you. Lucky 13. Great.
And I really need to just call out that both Peter Strand and our clerk, Sue McDonald, have really gone out to work with those partners ahead of time. And I believe that shows in the product that you are looking at tonight.
Supervisor Bates.
Yeah, just one other thing, in that should this pass, let us not forget that there will be a special meeting on November 9th for this particular issue.
Thank you. The chair reminds you that we have Mr. Strand here who could answer any questions that might arise at this point regarding the tentative plan. Any questions for Mr. Strand?
Yeah, Supervisor Anderson with the question.
Supervisor Anderson, please.
This is kind of a hypothetical, so if it has a complex answer, I can take it outside of the meeting or whatever it is. But my question is, I was just doing this presentation, I was thinking, I live like right on the edge of my district, and this doesn't apply to me, but should I have been redistricted out of my own district, what would be my ethical responsibilities in voting for this? And then secondly, are the residences of the supervisors taken into account in redistricting?
Mr. Strand, would you begin that? I might ask our Corp Counsel to comment on the first part. Go ahead.
As far as your ethical responsibilities, you would vote just like on any other issues. The redistricting plan has to be approved by the County Board of Supervisors. It may be that everybody votes to approve it, but it may also be that some members don't vote to approve it because they're impacted one way or another. And so, to answer your question about what is your ethical duty, your ethical duty would be to vote for it as you saw as fit. So,
thank you,
Mr.
Thank Strand.
You.
And yes, we did, through direction on committee administration, look at where current supervisors are located and if they would be in their district, and that is permissible by law. So it is, you can use current incumbents as a factor. Wouldn't be your most important factor in a district, but it can be used as a factor, contributing.
Supervisor Anderson, did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. It's very fascinating.
Okay, thank you. Any other question or comment?
Supervisor Cronk with a two-part question.
Supervisor Cronk.
Thank you. I noticed that with the public hearing with administration for September 14th, we didn't really have anybody speaking tonight. I'm curious if there was anybody speaking at that particular meeting. And then my second question is just checking in on some of the ideology for the changes with downtown, our downtown business area with the redistricting. What was the thought process there, if you can describe? Thank you.
I'll ask Supervisor Bates to comment on the first question.
We did not have any comments in regard to the redistricting map at the administration committee meeting. there were no call-ins or no one that asked to be there. So to answer your question, we did not have any apparent public concern.
Mr. Strand.
You asked about downtown, and I would say that the downtown area and university area may be one that was actually impacted by COVID. So with the university moving to an all virtual or a primarily virtual experience during COVID, there may be a good portion of students that actually left the community for Census Day. And so the District 18, which it would be upper campus, and then District 22, which would include lower campus, needed to increase, we needed to grab more people for them. So by increasing that population, District 22 went towards downtown. It also, there's a significant amount of downtown that is in District 22 that has little to no population. You can see, maybe if I zoom in even a little bit more, but there are plenty of blocks in here, if you can see the tiny little numbers, that have 0 population in it. So then we kind of want to just square it off and make it easy to describe in a legal description, because that is the other thing we'll be doing, is helping our municipal partners create legal descriptions for the wards that will be created after this plan would be approved.
Thank you. Any other comment or question?
Supervisor
Dunning, go ahead.
He said that they used the COVID in District 18 to do that. Now, is the population based on full dorms, or is it based on a reduction due to COVID?
It would be everyone currently residing in that district, in that dorm during Census Day. So if during Census Day, they were not in the dorm, that they actually decided that, oh, all my classes are virtual. My parents live in Milwaukee. I'm going home to Milwaukee and doing school online. They would not have been counted here. They would have been counted in their home district.
So theoretically, on election day, there could be 1,000, 1,500 more people in that district than is currently allowed.
It's not that it's not allowed. Yes.
Well, that then was counted or then anticipated.
Yes, and that is true in multiple districts. I would, not to get too far off, but if we look at District 29, the shape of District 29 changed a good amount to include portions of the city of Altoona that have rapid development and are still developing post-Census Day. So we know that the River Prairie area is an active part of our community that is getting more population, but it's really about that snapshot every 10 years is what we base it off of. That's just the way the redistricting and the census, it's that snapshot on that day.
I just was thinking at the last the election of November, of the pandemic, the spring election, there were just about 0 voters in 18.
Any other question or comment?
Could we have Peter talk a little bit about other districts that really grew? I'm just interested in that. The university is very interesting, but what other besides the Altoona Prairie Ridge or Prairie area has grown really fast, Peter?
I'd say we see some significant growth in most of the districts, I would consider in the city of Eau Claire. As our whole population increased, each of the districts also then increased. So, but for more of a unique one, District 10 did increase in population and therefore decrease in area, due to increased density, primarily down down on Highway 93, where some of the new subdivisions that you've seen for redistricting or for rezoning and stuff like that. So that one, we definitely saw the corridor down 93 increase in population. And then I would say Altoona is the other standout, whereas previous 10 years ago, Altoona primarily was consisted of 2 supervisors. There's now a third supervisor, District 29, that has a good chunk of Altoona, still a good chunk of the city of Eau Claire. But I think those are, there's growth everywhere, but those ones are a little bit more standout-ish.
Supervisor Coffey?
Thank you. I appreciate that input.
Okay, thank you. Any other question or comment?
Gatlin, I have a question, please.
Supervisor Gatlin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I lost my thought. Oh, first time around in my district, I had a lot of streets for borders, so I would have one side of the street, not the other, or it would go part way up the street and then stop and be a different district. So I specifically went in and talked to the clerk, the city of Eau Claire clerk, to find out specific addresses that were in my district so I could be sure when I was campaigning. Are we going to be able to get that in a timely manner?
An address list per your district?
Or clarification if we didn't know for sure. Like if
Sure.
I'm looking at your map and I'm a list person, I'm not really a map person. So if I wanted to make sure, some of those addresses were in my district versus somebody else's district.
Yes, we can do that.
And that we're going to have that information by the time we take out papers.
Yes. You can, the Department of Planning and Development, including myself specifically, can get an address list of all the people in any district.
Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you very much. This is very fascinating. I agree with Supervisor Anderson.
Is there any other question or comment? The chair would like to point out that if you look at District 15, I am representing 0 of the fish in the river. Just thought I'd point that out. I will be campaigning in a rowboat. Sorry, mark of levity there. Any other question or comment? Okay, supervisors, I will assume you are prepared to vote. I think because of the complexity and gravity of this, the chair is going to call for a roll call vote without objection. So, Clerk McDonald.
So voting on resolution approving a tentative supervisory district plan and directing the Department of Planning and Development to forward the tentative plan to each municipal governing body. Supervisor Gibson.
Yes.
McKinney.
Yes.
Knight.
Yes.
Pagonis.
Yes.
Anton.
Yes.
Zook.
Yes.
Pilson.
Yes.
Selgis.
Yes.
Mowry. Supervisor Mowry is absent. Coffey.
Yes.
Bates.
Yes.
Russell.
Yes.
Gatlin.
Yes.
Smeyer.
Yes.
Hambuck Boyle.
Yes.
Neiman.
Yes.
Dunning.
Yes.
Wilkie.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Snyder.
Yes.
Leary.
Yes.
DeLuca.
Yes.
Jansen.
Yes.
Rofnagel.
Yes.
Roberts.
Yes.
Frank.
Yes.
And Christofferson.
Yes.
It's unanimous.
Thank you. The vote is unanimous. Thank you, supervisors. We will now proceed to, to file 42.
An ordinance to amend section 1.04.010 of the code, terms of office for and election of county supervisors.
Just a point of interest, I've added or asked that we add the phrase required number of signatures so that we will know the content of the resolution. So, motion. Supervisor Leary, was that you waving at me? Yes.
It was.
Okay. Moved by Supervisor Leary. Second.
Supervisor Wilkie.
Supervisor Wilkie seconds. Sorry. Background information.
I can do that if you want. This is Tim.
Thank you, Tim. Go ahead.
Okay. This is a resolution, or an ordinance actually that we're bringing before the board to modify the number of signatures on nomination papers that will be needed when you're taking out papers coming in November and December. And this is a factor of the fact that Eau Claire County is now more than 100,000 people. And if you look at the statutes under section 8.10 sub 3 sub E, it requires that in counties between 100,000 and 750,000, you would have not less than 100 nor more than 200 electors sign your papers when you take them out for election. Obviously, between 100,000 and 750,000 people, there's a pretty big difference in the size of a county. And so the statutes actually do create an exception under 8.10 sub 3M in that a county of at least 100,000 but not more than 750,000 may provide by ordinance that the number of required signatures on nomination papers for the office of county supervisor in the county is not less than 50 nor more than 200 electors. So what we're doing here is creating a subsection B under section 1.04.010 of the Eau Claire County Code that allows, instead of having to get 100 signatures, you could get at least 50, but not more than 200 in order for your nomination or to get your nomination papers filed. It lowers the number of required signatures from 100 down to 50 is what it does. And then the rest of it is just renumbering the rest of the ordinance under 1.04.010. So.
Questions or comments? Discussion.
Supervisor
Schneider first.
Question on I gather that from what I understand is that the residents have to be registered voters to sign it. Is that correct?
Donald, can you answer that question? You're muted.
You just need to be 18 years old or older. Eligible voter.
Eligible voter. Not
Eligible voter.
Okay.
Eligible.
I say, since there isn't a student registered at the moment, it would be real hard to get a 50.
And I believe you also have to be a resident of the district. That's the other requirement.
Right. I believe that Supervisor Schneider will speak next and followed by Supervisor Russell.
Not me.
Oh, I'm sorry. I saw your lights. Supervisor Bates, excuse me. Go ahead, Supervisor Bates.
Oh, thank you. The only thing I would like you to note is this passed unanimously out of the committee. Plus, which the comments were such that they really felt to try to keep it so that it was easier for people to run for office and not so obviously if you have to collect 200 signatures, that could be pretty intimidating. So we'd like people to consider running, and this helps that process.
Thank you. My apologies for not coming back to you first, Supervisor Bates. Any other question or comment? I believe that we could do this by voice vote. Is that correct, Tim?
Yes.
Okay, all those in favor, excuse me, all those in favor of file 42, please indicate by saying aye.
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 All those opposed by nay. It is unanimous. Thank you. Next is file 54.
A resolution designating American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA funds to be used for the purpose of county facilities, COVID-related improvements, and public health quarantine and isolation.
Okay, motion.
Bates.
Supervisor Bates moves. Second.
Comeback Boyle.
Second by Supervisor Hamburg-Boyle. Explanation. I'm going to go first again to Administrator Schauf with Supervisor Bates as the second informant. Administrator Schauf.
Thank you, Chair Smyer. The resolution that you see before you this evening is the initial allocation of funds, other than the funds that have already been set aside for broadband with the town match, that the county will use for administration, public health response, the initial regranting process, as well as money to use within county government itself.
Thank you. Questions or comments? Questions or comments? I'm sorry, Supervisor Neiman, I just saw your hand raised.
Thank you. I have 3 questions, and I just would like to have some clarification. I'd like to know how the infrastructure needs were arrived at as being priority. And I was wondering what needs and qualifications warrant $150,000 for a project manager, and then what's happening to the rest of the money. Thank you.
Administrator Schauf.
Thank you. For your first question, you asked about infrastructure needs and the priority of those. I would say that the funds that are being allocated this evening are not necessarily allocated as being necessarily priority in terms of what may be the most important overall for the county, because that process is still underway and still being developed. However, there are some basic infrastructure projects that relate directly to COVID. For instance, in the Register of Deeds office and the District Attorney's office, they have identified that putting up the barrier between individuals coming into the office and the office personnel themselves would mitigate the spread of disease. And so it is a direct COVID response and directly related to that. And that is how those projects took priority. As to the second question, which was in regard to the $150K for project management, that is a guesstimate at this point, and it is a guesstimate based on 3 specific areas that the county will look for project management assistance. One is in the area for broadband work, and that individual would work with the broadband committee. It would, that position would help our local governments apply for those funds and actually assist in pulling together some of the collaborative arrangements that are required in order to make that work. It usually takes partnership with the local government, county government, the PSC provider, and so it's pulling all of those different components together. We're also aware that there are a number of different other funding sources that are out there and a number of different technologies that are involved. And so we want someone to provide part-time work for that administration. That's the lowest amount that's estimated for that portion of the project. The next actually is the regranting or third-party regranting administration. That would be the firm that would assist the ARPA task force or committee with creating the application materials including all of the criteria. They would actually manage that grant program. They would help administer the program itself. If an individual were to apply and perhaps not have a complete application, one of the expectations that we would have is that they would work with that applicant to fill that application out so it could be considered. They would continue then to work with the committee and work that through the entire process all the way through to a final report that the county would request that would demonstrate that the money was used for the purpose it was set forth for and that it was actually accomplished. So that is going to be a time-heavy commitment for that third-party administrator, as well as it will actually cover a number of years. It is not a singular project that will only cover a number of months. This is a multi-year project. The third portion of that is for general program administration. And that would be a position where we would have someone who would be on point to be aware of all of the different funding opportunities that are available. Every week we have seen from the governor's office announcements of new grant opportunities. And we as a county want to be able to take advantage of those grant opportunities and apply for them as they are appropriate and bring that money into our community. And so the purpose of that position is to leverage our funds and use those to bring additional funding into our community. And so they would help with the regional impact projects, looking for those funds, writing the grants, and getting those grants into our community. And your third question, I did not write down. So if you would please repeat that, Supervisor Neiman.
What happens to the rest of the money, the 17.5 million?
Thank you. It actually is still awaiting determination. I think one of the things that the Committee on Administration and the members can speak to this themselves is that they want to be very intentional and deliberate, getting the money into the community and spending it in meaningful ways, and at the same time not rushing forward because we're still in the midst of COVID. We're still ascertaining what the community need is and how those funds would be best spent. One of the things that we're looking forward to as part of this process with the regranting process is getting a better data set of what the real need in our community is. Earlier this evening, you heard the West Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission talk about how they had been an administrator for different funds on behalf of the state as they put out federal dollars. Getting a sense of what the actual need in our community is and a gauge of what that unmet need looks like is going to be very important in helping the county make future decisions about where to spend some of these monies.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Schneider with a question?
Supervisor Schneider, followed by Supervisor Wilkie.
It seemed like kind of a small chunk for nonprofits. Is that a formula or is that just at the moment?
That is actually just a first allocation. What we're hoping to do is by having that money and assigning it to that purpose, it starts that process as we begin to understand what the need is and what the true impact to our community is. The board can choose to allocate more money to that need. This is only the first allocation.
Supervisor Wilkie, followed by Supervisor Bates.
Follow up on what Supervisor Neiman was asking and somewhat what Supervisor Schneider was getting at. We have a long ways to go with this. First of all, I have no doubts we'll have no problems spending the money. There was a lot of unmet needs in our community, but there are a lot of voices that we need to hear from yet. And we had that first step with the public input by the city county down by the Pablo Center, which I think was done marvelously. And that sets the tone, the example of what we have to do. So I think at this stage, it's a lot of listening and seeking out input so that we have a strong, diverse opinions brought forward on how best this community can utilize those dollars to meet the needs of the community. No problem. We'll end up spending, but we got a lot of voices that need to be heard.
Thank you. Supervisor Bates.
Thank you. In committee, this was some of the discussion that took place, and the committee passed this unanimously. But again, keep in mind, we have 3 years in which to spend this funding. A lot can change in 6 months, let alone 3 years. And we hope to be able to pull in from all areas of the county, not just like when we talk about the lake districts and their particular needs. And that was one of the groups that presented at the public hearing. It's going to be important for us to be sure that all voices are heard. So that was the vote in the committee, and they supported it unanimously. I would urge your support as well.
Thank you. Supervisor Kronk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just curious too about the project manager. And my first question is, are members of the ARPA committee, are they paid for their time for meetings or for their input? And I believe we have some strong potential grant writers that are a part of that committee.
Okay.
And how will that process be for outreach for the project manager? I noticed, I'm trying to scroll back through my meeting packet here. It talks about contracts. Is it going to be the ARPA committee that reviews to make sure that we have increased equity in our contracts within the county, or is it going to be the Jeneise group that's reviewing to make sure that we have equity within our contracts within the county, or potentially both?
I can answer part of those questions. Members of the ARP committee or task force are not paid for their work. And the second response is that that the committee will certainly take into account the, I'll call them the Jeneise considerations. That will be integrated into all of our processes, including the ARPA task force. Did I miss part of your question, Supervisor Kronk?
The outreach for the project manager to make
Oh.
sure that that is somebody that has the equitable vision that we're saying that we are upholding within the county. How will that process occur?
Okay, I'm going to ask Administrator Schauf to respond. As a member of that task force.
We would actually have that be a base component of any contract that would be signed for the administration of those funds. One of the things, there is some base language that can be used that was even part of the legislation that authored and authorized the use and the distribution of ARP funds, that talks about its need and the diversity that it wants to uphold in getting funds into hands of populations that are oftentimes underrepresented. And so we would ensure that any contract language would be consistent with the ARP authoring legislation, and that we are covering that well. Dr. Briggs is also a member of the ARP task force, and we have a number of other members who are members of that task force that will help advise on that.
Okay. Supervisor Wilkie, you have your hand up again.
Well, I did want to comment in regards to, and maybe this does go to what Supervisor Kronk was alluding or getting at, or at least part of it. It's my understanding that this administrator, one of their assignments is going to be to reach out to those groups out in the community, not wait just for them to come to him. But that individual will go to them, make them aware of not only this opportunity, but also making sure that we seize opportunities using these dollars to leverage other dollars. So kind of a focal point, grant resource. I would also hope within the limitations of his or her position that that person would assist those programs to some extent in making application. We have good groups out in the community that are small in size and may not necessarily have the resources to put together a large grant, and they need somebody that they can ask question of and who to contact and whatnot, so that they can go for these dollars, but also other dollars. These dollars might even be able to serve as a match to get dollars for the typically smaller organizations.
Thank you. Any other question or comment?
I'll just
Supervisor
make
Biggs.
perhaps just one other comment. As we look at the fact that in our staffing right now, obviously we're understaffed in some specific areas. To take on a project of this magnitude without really looking at specific professional leadership, I think would be a big mistake. You can't have people with full schedules, in fact, sometimes more than full schedules, taking on more. So this should help us to have a much more successful use and a much better outcome of this whole process.
Thank you. Any other question or comment? Supervisors, I see none. We will proceed to a vote on file 54. All those in favor of file 54, please indicate by saying aye.
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 All those opposed by nay.
Nay.
We have then, I'm sorry, Clerk McDonald, you have to help me here. We have one nay and how many ayes then?
Well, because it's a voice vote, we're not sure how many exactly. So you could tell that the majority passed.
Well, the motion passes. I was trying to record the vote. If we have one nay, then I assume the rest of those present are voting aye. So that would be what number?
25 plus 1
25
nay.
yes, 1 no. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, supervisors. Next from the Highway Committee, file 40.
A resolution authorizing the sale of 2000 Spooner Avenue, Altoona, Wisconsin, owned by Eau Claire County to the city of Altoona.
Motion.
Schaufnagel.
Schaufnagel moves. Second.
Coffee seconds.
Coffee seconds. Thank you. Explanation. Supervisor Chilson.
Thank you. What we have before us tonight is a offer to purchase the current highway facilities in Altoona. The buyer would be the city of Altoona for their own municipal use. The property is 12 acres with the buildings and facilities, and the purchase price is made out to be 1.225. We looked at this at the Highway Committee meeting, and after back up just a second, the property had an appraisal done to arrive at that figure of the 1.225. We discussed it at the Highway Committee meeting, and after some discussion, the committee decided that we wanted more information in regard to the value of the property. And so Dean Larson was contacted, who then went out and looked at the property and inspected the facilities. And in his opinion, he came up with an idea that the property could have a value between 1.4 and 1.6 million dollars. If we went that route, we would have the expense of the real estate fees and commissions associated with the sale, which would make the net result very close to the offer before us. To note, there is also a deed restriction on this property for soil contamination that would have to be mitigated by the buyer if we were to sell it to develop the property. That is, Altoona is aware of that. And just to remind everyone, we had also sold the easement on the property. I believe it was a little over a year ago for the cell phone tower. So then it was brought back to the committee, and what's before you tonight after that discussion was a forwarding by the Highway Committee to the full board of this resolution and offer to purchase and sell the property for the value that's listed in the agreement.
Thank you. Questions or discussion?
Are they willing to wait till we're done with it?
I believe that time frame is communicated in the offer to purchase, I believe. And this is Tim Sullivan. I can add something on that.
Go ahead, Tim.
The closing date indicated in the offer to purchase is December 31st of 2022. The new building may not be constructed by that time, but it's going to be close. I had John Johnson contact Mike Golad at the city today, and he indicated that if we needed a month or two longer, that they would work with us on that. So,
Thank you.
Clarification,
Supervisor McKinney.
did the committee, what is the committee's recommendation on voting?
5 for.
oh, the highway committee voted 3-0 in favor of moving it forward to the board for the sale as outlined and proposed.
Okay, thank you.
Other comment or discussion? See none. Tim, because of the size of this purchase amount, is this done by roll call?
Yes, it's because it's sale of property also.
Sale of property. Thank you. Okay. Clerk McDonald will now do the roll call vote.
Gibson,
Yes.
McKinney,
Yes,
Knight,
Yes.
Pagonis,
Yes,
Anton,
you're muted, Carl.
Yes.
Zook,
Yes.
Gilson,
Yes.
Selgis,
Yes.
Coffee,
Yes,
Henning, oh, Ray's not there. Bates,
yes,
Russell,
yes,
Gatlin,
Yes,
Meyer,
Yes.
Ambach Boyle,
yes,
Neiman,
yes,
Dunning,
Yes.
Wilkie,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Beckfield, not present. Schneider,
Yes.
Leary,
You're
Larry?
muted.
Okay.
You're muted, Robin.
I can see that
Yes,
she's
you are.
nodding her head yes.
Yeah, okay.
DeLuca,
yes,
Anson,
yes,
Draufnagel,
yes,
Roberts,
Yes.
Frank,
yes,
and Christofferson.
yes.
It's 26 yes.
Oh, thank you.
3
26
absent.
yes, it is unanimous vote. Thank you. Next item on our agenda from the Committee on Planning and Development, File 41.
An ordinance amending the 1982 zoning district boundary map for the town of Washington.
Motion,
Dunning moves.
Dunning moves, second.
Coffee seconds.
Coffee seconds, thank you. Explanation, Supervisor Gibson.
Thank you, Chairman Smyer. This is to rezone 35 acres of land from A2 to RH district to enable development of a single-family detached residence subdivision. The county and the town of Washington's comprehensive plans both support this. The staff has concluded and they recommend that they find the proposed rezoning request substantially conforms with the Eau Claire County Comprehensive Plan, and the comprehensive plan recognizes that the proposed RH zoning district is consistent within the mapped future land use. The town of Washington held their public hearing on August 19th, and they voted unanimously 5-0. Eau Claire County's Planning and Development conducted their required public hearing on September 14th, and we voted 5-0 in favor.
Thank you. Questions or comment?
Schneider with a question. How big could the subdivision be?
That's going to be determined in the future because if approved, there's going to be a separate preliminary and then a final plat review process is required, and that will come back to planning and development for approval.
I guess my question was more theoretical. Is it something where they're going to get a chunk today and a chunk next month and a chunk next month and then come in with a big subdivision? Or is that something that you never know?
Nope, it's 35 acres right now and that's it.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Christopherson.
Thank you, Chair Smeyer. Just a question about public comment. Was there any public comment during the committee meeting for or against the subdivision?
There was only one person that spoke and he had a question, and I don't even remember exactly what it was, but it was irrelevant to the rezoning. It's part of the future process after this is approved.
Thank you. Other question or comment?
Supervisor Cronk with a comment. Do any of these go through like the Housing Opportunities Commission for consideration as well? I know that, we're talking about the county, but I'm just curious.
As far as I know, they do not.
Thank you. Other question or comment? Any other question or comment? I see none. Supervisors, we will now vote on file 41. All those in favor of file 41 indicate by saying aye.
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 All those opposed by nay.
Nay.
We have 1 nay and 25 aye. The motion passes. Thank you. Next, from the Committee on Finance and Budget, file number 35.
A resolution authorizing a 2021 budget transfer of capital projects funds.
Thank you. Motion? Motion.
Supervisor Wilkie moves it.
I think I have Supervisor Pagona. I'm sorry. Let me try to get that straight. Supervisor Pagona seconds. Okay. Explanation, Supervisor Pagonis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Basically, what we're seeing is that projects had been done and there was some bond funds that remained from the other projects. And so what's before you is a reallocation of that funding. And it refers to as surplus funding, but the original project that the borrowing was done for came in at a lower amount. So surplus is kind of an odd word. I just remind Chair Smeyer, this does need to have a 2/3 approval because it does represent a budget transfer. The projects on the list are all ones that have been considered fairly high priority, and that they may or may not relate to the projects that were originally determined for the borrow. But these are ones, just the county wish list in terms of wanting to take action. And this is all available funds now, so no additional borrowing. And it's, as I said, expenditures based on county priorities. by approving this now and allowing it to get started during 2021, we may be able to get a lot of these projects completed, or at least started this year. And so if we delayed or if we waited to have our 2022 borrow, they would be significantly delayed. I think I've said everything I need to say. So
You have it. And thank you for your reminder regarding the vote. You're doing your job very well. Thank you.
thank you.
I rely on that. Thank you. Any questions or comments?
Schneider with a question.
Supervisor Schneider.
Because something came in under budget, if I'm understanding you right, we couldn't pay that off, put it toward paying down our debt, could we?
Most of our outstanding debt has been refunded, and so we're now working pretty aggressively to pay down our debt. I guess theoretically we could, but given many of these projects were projects that were being pushed into 2022, which means we would have to borrow for it anyway. So since these funds exist currently, it seems prudent to be able to just take some of the 2022 capital requests and use the additional excess funds to complete them. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thanks.
Thank you. Any other question or comment?
Supervisor Cronk with a question.
Supervisor Cronk.
Thank you. Is it the, just from my understanding, is it the finance department that decides, obviously the board is voting on this, but is it the finance department that decides what's the high priority? I'm looking at, some of the requests, and I'm just curious, with some of the things that we've talked about earlier tonight, with like the JEDI committee and, how we're looking at who's been hit most hard with some of the recent things like a global pandemic. I'm just curious of how has this been prioritized with the funds that are available? Say, for example, if locks need to be replaced in the juvenile detention center, could those funding or funds be put towards, say, housing for people that couldn't pay their rent? I mean, what is the availability of these funds, and who determines what's the priority is my question.
I'm going to ask, first of all, Supervisor Pagonis to answer, and then Administrator Schauf may have a comment.
Thank you, Chair Smyer. These are capital dollars. They cannot be moved into operations. So, the county doesn't have any kind of a capital program. And I will point out, for example, the roof replacement on 716 First Avenue, that's Rick's house. That's a facility that's owned by the county, that's used by the Department of Human Services. So there are things here that would relate to some of your questions, but these are capital projects. You can't use borrowed capital dollars for operational type expenses.
Administrator Schauf, did you have an additional comment?
I was going to make the same comment that Supervisor Pagonis just made.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions? I see none. I hear none. Supervisors, we will now vote on file 35. All those in favor?
Nope. Chair Smyer, has to be a roll call vote.
Nope, sorry. Thank you. Sorry, I fell down on the job there, Supervisor Pagonis. Thank you for reminding me again. Okay, Clerk McDonald.
And as far as I understand, 2/3 vote is needed. That would be 18 of the 26 present would need to vote for it. Gibson?
Yes.
McKinney?
Yes.
Knight?
Yes.
Pagonis?
Yes.
Anton?
Yes.
Zook?
Yes.
Pilson,
Yes.
Felges,
Yes.
Coffee,
Yes.
Bates,
Yes.
Russell,
Yes.
Gatlin,
Yes.
Meyer,
Yes.
Hambuck Boyle,
Yes.
Neiman,
Yes.
Dunning,
Yes.
Wilkie,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Schneider,
Yes.
Leary. Yes, Robin, Leary.
Her voice is, her microphone isn't working. She's saying yes.
All right, DeLuca,
Yes.
Jansen,
Yes.
Schaufnagel,
Yes.
Roberts,
Yes.
Frank,
Yes.
and Christopherson.
Yes.
That's 26.
The
Unanimous.
passes unanimously. Thank you. Next item on our agenda is file 40 from Committee on Finance and Budget is file 47.
A resolution authorizing the sale of tax deed property to former owner Jason H. West for $32,014.79. Directing Corporation Counsel to prepare a quitclaim deed on the described property and directing the county clerk to execute said quitclaim deed on behalf of Eau Claire County.
Motion,
Schaufnagel.
Schaufnagel moves, second.
Wilkie seconds.
Wilkie seconds, thank you. Explanation, Supervisor Pagonis.
Thank you, Chair Smeyer. Both state statute and county code authorize the sale, the return, I'll say, of property that's been taken by the county from the former owner for failure to pay taxes. This is a case exactly like that. So Mr. West previously owned the property, got taken by Eau Claire County, and he was able to come up not only with his back taxes, but the interest and penalty. And if you note, they almost equal out, $18,000 for delinquent taxes and $14,000 for penalty and expenses. This property is right down in the 3rd Ward. And so it's hard to know exactly what happened, but nonetheless, he's come up with the money and wants his property back. And as I said, state statute and county code authorize it and require us to do it this way.
Thank you. Questions or comments?
Schneider with a question.
Supervisor
We've had
Schneider.
a couple of these. They're kind of interesting in that how long does the county hang on to the property so that somebody can do that?
Supervisor Pagonis.
Thank you. Clerk McDonald might be able to help me, but typically we take the property after 3 years of non-payment of taxes, and we notify the individual that, you know, the owner, that the property's been taken, and then we give the individual the opportunity and the warning that if she doesn't come forward with the funding, that it would get sold. So it's a process. And when you say we've had some of these recently, yes, we have. So it's just a process.
Clerk McDonald, do you have anything to add there?
No, that pretty much sums it up. Yeah, it does seem like we've had some properties lately, and we have a few more possibly coming. But yeah, as long as they come up with the money and want to buy it back, that's.
Okay, thank you.
They get like a few months to do it or not do it, and then the county
Well,
will
we send a
sell it.
letter right away when we take the property, and we basically say, we took the property, you need to notify us if you intend to buy this back. So it's kind of they have to make the decision fairly quickly that they want to buy it back.
And if they don't, then it gets sold to whomever.
Yes, that's correct.
Although when it goes up for sale, if the property owner makes a bid on it, they're first in line.
Thank you. Any other question or comment? hear none.
I believe we have to do a roll call vote on this as well.
Thank you. Supervisor Pagonis, you're supposed to remind me about that.
It doesn't need to be 2/3 though.
Okay, okay, thank you.
It's a simple majority.
Thank you. Okay, Clerk McDonald.
Gibson,
Yes.
McKinney,
Yes.
Knight,
Yes.
Pagonis,
Yes.
Anton,
Yes.
Zook,
Yes.
Gilson,
Yes.
Felges,
Yes.
Coffee,
Yes.
Bates,
Yes.
Russell,
Yes.
Gatlin,
Yes.
Meyer,
Yes.
Hamburg Boyle,
Yes.
Neiman,
Yes.
Dunning,
Yes.
Wilkie,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Snyder,
Yes.
Leary. Is she saying yes? No, she's on anymore. DeLuca,
Yes.
Jansen,
Yes.
Schaufnagel,
Yes.
Roberts,
Yes.
Frank,
Yes.
and Christofferson.
Yes.
I believe that's 25.
Yes. Yeah, and Robin unknown.
Right. Okay, the motion passes. Thank you. Supervisors, we've now reached the end of our agenda. I thank you for your patient participation this evening and have a good evening. We are now adjourned.
Good night. Good night.
This program was brought to you by a cooperation between Newsworks and Eau Claire County.